Yo, it's the Co.
And yo, it's the Cone. And today we are doing our roundup and recap of the first Premier League match week. It's going to be a thing every Friday. Go and talk about the previous week right before the next week starts. We're looking forward to it. We're going to start right away. Starting off with the lone Friday game, the start to the Premier League season, Manchester City versus Burnley. Marco, what do you got for us?
It shows you that City were not a fluke last year. They were never a fluke. The treble was meant for them. They came in strong. They started off the season 4 minutes in. Holland scores a pretty easy goal. Fell right to him. The second one was another beauty. And then they just had to finish it off and put one more in. But it showed how much Burnley improved from last year. Because in the FA Cup, they lost 6-1. And it showed how much they spent in the transfer window to kind of fight in the Premier League.
Yeah, I mean, they looked pretty good. It looked like early on they were like, it took them a few minutes after that first Holland goal. It ended up being relatively competitive. Before the Holland goal, they looked shocked. Like it looked like they were nervous and they needed that reality check of like, hey, we're here. But yeah, I thought it ended up being relatively competitive, or as much as a Man City versus Burnley game can be. Holland is Holland. He's gonna score nonstop. Disappointing for Kevin De Bruyne. Really disappointing. It didn't look like he was fully fit, and he comes in. You know, he's off the bench in the Community Shield. Comes in, starts game one. Reports were that he didn't really want to start game one. Plays 20, 25 minutes and goes down and seems like it'll be for the majority of the year, which is disappointing. But the team around him, the team that City have, they'll be okay. They're still going to contend for the league. They're still probably going to win the league.
It's a big loss for City, but they signed Kovacic for a reason. Rico Lewis, he can play in the midfield. Julian Alvarez is playing phenomenal. Cole Palmer is playing like a younger Kevin De Bruyne. So they have depth in the midfield to replace Kevin De Bruyne for now.
Yeah, I do want to give a shout out to Julian Alvarez. I did say to Marco during this game that I think Alvarez is a lot similar to De Bruyne, despite being a striker. He's not Holland. He's not that style. He's a guy he's a striker that is gonna play back sometimes, and he's gonna get assists. He's really good. Moving on to the first Saturday game in Arsenal and Nottingham Forest.
It was a great first half for Arsenal, and then they kind of slowed down a little bit after that. They kind of gave Nottingham Forest more opportunities in the second half, because they only had 2-3 chances that I could see, and 2 of them came in the second half. And the one came out to be a pretty easy goal for Nottingham Forest. Didn't Saka have a nice goal in this game? It was the outside the box beauty. But Matt Turner, he played really well coming to Nottingham Forest from Arsenal. It should have been more goals for Arsenal, but Matt Turner played very well in this match to keep it only 2-1.
Yeah, it was a pretty good performance for both teams. I think, especially in match week 1, you can take a lot of positives from it, from both sides. Arsenal didn't play a complete game against a team that they should be beating pretty easily, but the first half was great, and they held through and they got the 3 points. So they can always look back and be pretty happy that they at least got the points. Forest did pretty well. I mean, there were some downsides, some good, some bad. Matt Turner had a great game. Taiwo Awanidi, I'm gonna mess that up. I'll work on that. Did really well scoring a goal off the bench. Anthony Elanga comes in, gets an assist off the bench in his first game for the club. Little sad about Brennan Johnson's performance, coming off of a pretty good season last year, but it's the first match of the year. You got 38 of them. It's gonna get better for most of them. Also disappointed about Jurrien Timber. I know Marco had him as the disappointment transfer of the league, but not in this way. It's never how it's intended. It's really unfortunate for him and for Arsenal. He wasn't playing poorly, but it's unfortunate. Saka had a great game. Martinelli did well, and Ketty is a great player. Odegaard is awesome. Arsenal are gonna be a great team.
They have to play better, a little bit better, to contend for that champion spot.
Yeah, with David Raya coming in, he's gonna push Aaron Ramsdale. Ramsdale's gonna push Raya. It's gonna be. You would hope that defense ends up being pretty good with the inclusion of two goalies capable of playing in the first team for most Premier League clubs. To Bournemouth and West Ham United.
It was a pretty boring game from both sides. West Ham don't have their full team out there yet. Like some of the transfers that they are trying to push forward and have recently purchased were not on the pitch or on the bench. So it's a kind of weaker side of West Ham. Bournemouth did amazing just keeping it 1-1. Bournemouth did an amazing job just keeping it 1-0. The last 10 minutes, they made it 1-1. And we saw two teams kind of fighting to get out of regulation just to secure a point, basically.
Yeah, realistically, both teams could get relegated this year. But they both get a point starting off the year. Again, it's the first match of the year. Lucas Paqueta probably won't be at West Ham by the end of the window. So it really hurts their team to be losing someone like him. But while he played phenomenally, there were a lot of other positives to take from that. From that side, as Marco said, more transfers are coming in for West Ham. They're going to be getting more help is on the way. And for Bournemouth, Solanke is going to be what he is. He's going to score 12, 14 goals this year. Maybe more. It could be more. They have a team that I think similar to last year could defy expectations, and they were picked by basically everyone to go down last year and end up being around mid-table, a little bit below it, but they were safe. There wasn't a real threat in the last few weeks of relegation. Things would have had to go catastrophically wrong, but I think overall, like Marco said, relatively boring game, 1-1, but both teams are gonna have to continue to fight for points in order to stay up this year.
With the fourth game and third game of Saturday, we have Brighton against Luton Town.
I'll start us off. I know the scoreline was 4-1, and it was a pretty dominant performance for Brighton, and it wasn't great for Luton Town, but really, I think they just needed that first goal. And I know they gave up 2 more goals after they got that first goal, but it's a real confidence boost for future matches that they can score, that they belong. And despite the 4-1 scoreline, I think they will be okay. Brighton, they're my team to get 4th this year, and I really do believe that they are a Champions League level club from top to bottom. I mean, it's unfortunate that they don't have Robert Sanchez anymore, that he's at Chelsea, but they played Steele this week. He was fine. They have Bart Verbruggen, who I think is going to be their goalie of the future, who I want to see get time. But just, they really do have such a good squad. Estupinian had a phenomenal game. The Hood was great. That entire back line of the defense was awesome. Mitoma is always going to do well. Pedro is going to do well. Sully March is great. Denny Welbeck is great. Evan Ferguson, the star boy, gets a goal for Brighton. It's gonna be a lot of that. I feel like they are one of the safer teams against these lower level clubs like a Luton Town when they play a Sheffield or an Everton. Like, they're gonna do what they're supposed to do in these games.
Yeah, like Luton Town, it's gonna take time to adjust to bigger teams. I know their stadium is very small. Like, a lot of teams are gonna have to adjust to their stadium, to their energy. But Brighton's a very great young team. Like, we might see Evan Ferguson maybe halfway through the season take the starting job from Welbeck. I knew that the Hood signing was going to be great for Brighton because he was a very young talent. A couple years ago, was going to be the future of Dortmund. Never panned out. Now he's in the Premier League. Maybe it's his time to shine. Just for Luton Town, it's going to take time for them. Just to adjust to these big teams. They're going to beat the smaller teams. They're going to draw to some of the bigger teams, but it's going to take time for them.
Yeah, I saw people that are mainly Luton Town supporters are saying, like, when people come to play at Luton Town, like, the pitch is always rough. But they don't want them to fix that, because you want people, when you go somewhere, when Luton Town hosts a Man City, they want to make it as hard as possible. They really do, and I think that they're going to have success at home. And yeah, I think it's going to be tough for them to stay up to get points, but they're capable, and they'll adjust, and it'll get there. Their time will come.
Now for the fifth game, Everton versus Fulham.
It was boring. That's the nicest way I can put it. I mean, Fulham are a very methodical team. Slow, methodical. It's why they exceeded expectations last year. They make other teams play the way that they want them to. They play their style through and through, and it's great. Everton obviously don't have the strongest team this year, but they gave Fulham some trouble for the most part. I mean, it was competitive. It was even. It was a better game than you would think Everton and Fulham would be. But at the end of the day, that back line that Fulham have with Tete, Diop, Tim Ream, Anthony Robinson, Bernd Leno, it's tough to beat. It's gonna be tough to score goals on them.
It's the first match day. Everyone adjusts. It was kind of like a goodbye to Mitrovic because he just agreed to personal terms. He's leaving. It's gonna be a Raul Jimenez starting 9 up front, and he knows how the Premier League is. He knows how hard it is to score goals. He knows how difficult it is to play these top teams, and Fulham are still making signings. They just signed one of his best friends from Wolves a couple years ago, Adama Traore. He is a very physical, big guy who can just play on the wings, very fast, and I feel like that signing is going to be great for Fulham and Raul Jimenez just to get the confidence back. Might be the light switch to Fulham to make them not just a mid-table team, but a very more upside mid-table team. The ones that fight for the money, fight for kind of like a champ, like not like a conference league spot in a couple years. It's going to be a very good team Fulham's going to have.
Yeah, the back line is there. The more the attack builds up, they're going to become a really, really complete team. Next up in our Saturday games, we have Crystal Palace and Sheffield United. It wasn't bad. I enjoyed it for the most part. Palace have a really solid team. And I know it's Sheffield's first time up in a while. It's the same thing as Luton, same thing as Burnley. It takes time to adjust to the Premier League coming up from the Championship. It's gonna take a few matches, but I think the moral of the story that I can draw from it is Palace took care of business. It wasn't pretty. It's 1-0. It's never going to be comfortable at 1-0, but again, it's a solid performance from them, and it's something to build on. Even with Olise probably on his way out, you can still be comfortable with the people that they have.
I feel that this game was very dominated by Crystal Palace, but it should have been by more goals. 24 shots and only 1 goal. Very disappointing. And it's against a new team up in the Premier League. Like, Crystal Palace have been in the Premier League for how many years? Like, they should be taking care of business against a lower league team that just came up, and one team that's certain to be relegated at the end of the year by everyone. The last game of Saturday, 12:30 our time, Newcastle against Aston Villa.
Yeah, it was rough for Aston Villa. Aston Villa is a team that I rated pretty highly going into the year. Newcastle as well. Man, it was dominant by Newcastle. I mean, Tonali scoring 5-6 minutes in. Beautiful goal all around. Newcastle are dominant. I texted you like 10 minutes into the game saying Newcastle can genuinely win the league. Like, they were dominant from start to finish. Moussa Diaby scores for Villa on his debut. Tonali scores on his debut. It was a cool moment. 2 debut goals in 10-11 minutes. It was really cool. But then Newcastle settled in once again. Isak is great. Callum Wilson. I mean, Isak, you had winning the Golden Boot. It seems like he can do it. Callum Wilson, if they can find a way to put those two together at the same time, I mean, the goals are gonna be unbelievable. And Villa aren't done yet. They have some transfers to be done. They just got Zaniolo. They have some injuries. Jacob Ramsey is still on his way back, but it was not a good start for them. I mean, the defense looked shaky. Unfortunate for Tyrone Mings as well. I know it's the third person that we're saying this for, but it is unfortunate in match week 1, and you saw it happen, and right away it's unfortunate. But even without him, the game shouldn't have went as bad as it did.
I would like to take out Spurs as a top 6 or a big 6 team in the Premier League, and newly enjoy Newcastle as one of them. Newcastle are going to be the new team in the Big 6 next to Liverpool, Chelsea, Man United, Man City, Arsenal. Newcastle might win the league this year if they keep playing like this. Tonali is adjusting very well. Alexander Isak is going to be the Golden Boot winner, right? He's going to be fighting next to Haaland. I'm saying this as a City fan, as a person who loves Haaland. He might beat out Haaland for Golden Boot. This team is built to win the league. And I know the owner, he's like a Saudi, whatever, he has money, he has oil money, but he's using that oil money very good. He's not wasting his money signing these dumb players for $100 million so they don't do anything. He signed Isak a couple years ago. Great. He signed Tonali. It turns out to be a very great signing for them. He's building a team that can fight for the Premier League champion. For years in the Champions League, to fight for the Champions League title. Like, this team is built to win a lot of trophies in the next coming years.
Yeah, I think the biggest difference between Newcastle and like a Chelsea, both teams have infinite funds. Infinite. Newcastle do good business. They don't, they got Nick Pope for like 12 million. Unbelievable. They got Anthony Gordon for, 40, 50? Not too much. They got Tonali for 60 or 70. Great business. I know I said it would take Tonali time. He wants to be there. He does. He's happy to be there, and I was moved. I was completely wrong instantly, and I'm very happy to accept that I was wrong, because he's a special player. Yeah, you're right. Newcastle could contend for the league, could contend for the Champions League, and it's crazy to think that. But it's what happens when you have owners that are willing to invest, but invest in the right players.
Moving on to Sunday, our first game, Brentford against Tottenham.
It was interesting. I didn't really know what to think going into it. I mean, your main thoughts are, what are Spurs going to do without Kane? You have Son, who's a great player. Richarlison finally gets to play up top like he did for Everton, and they had him on the left last year. He struggled to score goals. You have James Maddison, great player. I think he assisted both goals. He did assist both goals. Two defenders score goals for Spurs. Did pretty well in his first game as the Ivan Toney replacement in the short term, at least, while Toney serves his gambling suspension. What a life he lives. Yeah, I think, again, it's kind of similar to some of the other games where both teams can take positives from it. I mean, you score 2 goals. The Spurs defense was solid. I mean, honestly, they were solid, but I think over the course of the entire season, they're going to see how much they really miss Kane.
Yeah, I think we see a lot of new faces for Spurs. They're a team that likes to keep their good old players in there. But James Maddison was the star of the show. He came from Leicester beautifully, and he just, for a debut, beautifully assists his 2 goals. I think Richarlison's going to be okay this year. I think Son's going to miss Harry Kane, but he's going to love James Maddison. I think them two as a duo is going to be very good. And Brentford, it's just a very good mid-table team. The only team that didn't lose to City last year, beat them twice.
In all comps.
He beat them twice in the Premier League. It's a very good team for Brentford. Both of their strikers had goals. They're going to miss Ivan Toney, but they have good replacements for him, as we can see.
I think it's possible that James Maddison was the most important signing of the season.
Yeah.
He very well could lead Spurs to Champions League football, European football. I'm gonna backtrack there for a second, but yeah, he's so good. He's just really good.
To the last game of Sunday, Chelsea versus Liverpool. When I was talking to someone about this game, I was like, it's gonna be a 0-0 draw. We've seen it in the past 3 match days. It was 0-0. No one scored goals. Happened to be 1-1. Everything in the first half. The second half was pretty boring. I think it was a better game for Liverpool because you get to see your new signings in the midfield. The whole defense played amazing. But for Chelsea, it was more of a benefit because you need to adjust with these new lineups that you're going to put out there. A lot of them is just like what we've been saying. It's just 11 guys on the field just playing. No chemistry, no nothing. Both teams need to adjust more. They need to play better. Find European football again for these 2 teams.
Yeah, absolutely. There's definitely a lot that you can take from this game. It's just every time that they play, it's a draw. I mean, going into it, it's just the best bet is that it's going to be pretty even and it's going to end in a draw. Axel the Aussie did well, debuted. Levi Colwill, his first game for Chelsea since being at Brighton last year, did well as well. I mean, that back line is going to be really good. you kind of wonder how they're going to be with Robert Sanchez as their long-term goalie instead of Kepa and Mendy like it was for years and years. That midfield can't be the long-term midfield. Gallagher is fine. Enzo is amazing. Really just phenomenal. Potentially the best midfielder in the league.
Yep.
I don't think it's if someone said that, I don't think I would argue against it. Chukwuemeka did. Reece James didn't get injured, but had to be subbed out before the game ended. Looked exhausted, which is fine. He's the club captain, though. You want him to be available at all times, but he'll be all right. Sterling was meh. Jackson did well. Liverpool, all around, not bad. I can't say much. Gakpo isn't a midfielder. I think that's basically the main thing to take from that. Their debutants did well. The back line is what it has been for years. It's just solid. Allison is Allison. Couple goals ruled for offsides, which is fine. I think they'll both be okay by the end of the year.
Now for the last and most controversial game this whole weekend, Man United versus Wolverhampton Wanderers.
First, I want to say the back line and the goalie for United did very well. I know because United won the match, they're going to give man of the match to someone on United, but it was Cunha. It was Mateus Cunha from Wolves was the man of the match. He was unbelievable. He was the best. He was playing through the midfield for the majority of the game, and he was the best midfielder on the pitch. Better than Bruno, better than Casemiro, better than Mount. There are midfield changes that are going to have to happen for United. Casemiro can't be the only one that goes back. Both Mount and Bruno, their average field position that you saw were almost up with Rashford up top. Rashford can't be the long-term striker option. It's not his natural position. If he goes on the left, he's going to be one of the best, if not the best, left wings in the league. Garnacho needs to be a bit more direct. Anthony wasn't bad, but the controversy at the end with the non-penalty, I thought it was a penalty. I do think Wolves were the better team and deserved at least a point, but they didn't get it. United just have to feel lucky that they got the 3 points and be ready for Spurs this weekend because they're a better team than Wolves and they're going to give them problems.
I feel like with United, we're going to see a lot of rotations. I feel like the formation is going to change this upcoming weekend. I feel like running a 3 in the back would probably be better. Having Wan-Bissaka, more of a right winger. I think Garnacho cannot start at this moment. I think that should be Rashford's spot. I think this weekend we see Haaland's season starting debut.
Hope so.
I think Bruno's going to be he's going to be more happy seeing Haaland there, a natural striker. I think Rashford just needs to go back to his original position. We saw what he did last year, played amazing. And with Wolves, they're just fighting this just to stay up. I think this team is not good, but they have a chance to stay up if they just keep playing like they did against United, giving them trouble, because they can fight for that. I know they got unfortunate situations happening with the refs, with the assistant refs. It should have been a 1-1 draw. United just got lucky at the end.
Yeah, changes need to be made for both sides. I mean, realistically, the only change that Wolves need is a permanent manager, and just kind of building that team that they have. And whether it's a formation change or a personnel change from a game-to-game basis, you are going to see a lot of changes from a match-to-match basis for United. And even if Højlund isn't ready because of his back, 45 minutes of Martial to move Rashford to the left isn't going to be the end of the world. But definitely something needs to be done to change that. Well, guys, that's all from us. Should be a weekly thing, just rounding up rounding up the games that happened. If you liked it, make sure to like the video, comment down below what you thought of the games, who your team is, how you think they played, whatever it may be. We'd love to hear it. Marco, you got anything?
Oh, just like, subscribe, like you keep saying.
All right. Until next time, see you guys later.